All right, Betsy, let's talk about it. Interest rates, we know that. They're going up again. Inflation remains high. Holidays right around the corner. People are going to be spending more on presents and food and everything else. What can you realistically do in the new year as the governor to help these Oregonians who are struggling?
Well, there are a variety of things. One, I think, is to look forward to say, what can we do to inoculate against the next time? Because anybody that watches Oregon's business cycle knows that we follow our budget follows the vicissitudes of the business cycle. We have not, in my opinion, valued jobs and job creators. The best prophylactic against a recession or against economic disaster in one's house is a well-paying job. And so creating an environment where business is welcomed, business is enthusiastically invited into our communities, and those jobs are created and the taxes that come with them, I think that's one of the things that an economic development governor could do. I've been a cheerleader for economic development in my Senate district for as long as I've been in the legislature, and I would absolutely intend to lead this state with a pro-jobs, pro-job creators, pro-business environment to welcome those companies and retain the ones that we have that are worried about an economic downturn.
We are in the final stretch before Election Day. Looking back on your campaign, has it gone the way you had hoped?
Well, we knew that running unaffiliated was going to be difficult. Unfortunately, our whole country is caught in the vice grip of partisanship. And so what we offered was a third way that Oregonians have not seen before. And if I am sorry about anything towards the end, it is that all the attention has gone on the horse race. Is the R going to win? Is the D going to win? And I'm afraid Oregonians' voices have gotten lost in this conversation. That's one of the reasons why while my opponents are flying in East Coast political celebrities, I'm flying out to every corner of Oregon to meet with Oregonians where they live and work and to find out what's on their mind. I don't need the governor of Virginia or Elizabeth Warren or anybody else to come in here and opine on the condition of Oregon. I've sat in people's living rooms, in restaurants, at the airports that we've flown into, and actually talked to them. So my concern right now is that we continue to see this as a binary choice. Instead of talking about which side is going to win, I wish we were engaged in a conversation about how do we govern. How do we bring Oregonians back together again? And that's been the whole thesis of this campaign. I believe, and I believe the majority of Oregonians feel, that operating in the middle is where most of us are, and most of us are the most comfortable. I want all voices at the table, and that was the whole reason I got into this race.
I'm sure going in, you knew you might play the role of spoiler in this. Why was that worth the risk taking for you?
Well, first of all, I dispute your characterization as spoiler. If you want to talk about spoiler, let's talk about, frankly, Tina. Tina spoiled the state. We've got 10 cities. She spoiled the party I was part of. I think she spoiled the legislative process. And so I reject the label of spoiler. What I would do is to say I offered a third way. And it's just not a product that's been on the political shelf that Oregonians are used to. So I would submit that this campaign has changed the political conversation. I mean, I'm asking you to believe along with your listeners. Just think with me about a governor that would say, I won't sign a major bill into law, I won't sign a budget into law, I won't make an appointment to a board or commission without some demonstration of some bipartisan support. I don't care what your politics are, I don't care what your zip code is. I want Oregonians to be part of the process again, not passing bills because the votes politically exist to pass them, but passing bills because they're good policy. If a bill's good for one Oregonian, it ought to be good for all Oregonians. And I think we've lost track of that as a governing principle.
I'm sure you've heard the ads out there on the radio and elsewhere, and just people kind of talking that a vote for Betsy Johnson is a vote for Christine Drazan. What do you think when you hear that?
You've missed the other side of the conversation. A vote for Betsy Johnson is a vote for Tina Kotek. I reject that. A vote for Betsy Johnson is a vote for Betsy Johnson. It's exactly what the Oregonians said the other day when they opined that I'm not a spoiler in this race. I'm offering a unique product at a unique time. And that was part of the calculus when we first started talking about doing this, because running unaffiliated is a moonshot, and I knew it going in. But it offers Oregonians a third value proposition that says, is there a way to do business differently? And I think we've made the case. I mean, I have stayed credible until the end. We've been well financed by Oregonians versus this tsunami of money pouring in nationally. If you go to the Secretary of State's website and look at the way the contributions are color-coded, mine are Oregonians. They're not the National Democrat or the National Republican. They're not out-of-state money coming in here trying to influence Oregon's policies and politics. They're Oregonians.
I'm sure you've heard all the polls out there who show you in a distant third place. Was there ever a point along the way, Betsy, where you said, I'm getting out of this race? Was there ever that thought?
No. I, along with lots of Americans, went to sleep thinking that Hillary Clinton was the President of the United States. I think the whole art and science of polling has been turned on its head by the fact that so many young people now have gotten rid of their landlines. They communicate on platforms that are frankly somewhat foreign to me. A poll is a snapshot in time. Sports bookies don't win games, pollsters don't win elections, and so no, this was a determined, informed undertaking, and I think we're offering a product that a lot of Oregonians want.
There's still folks out there haven't decided who they're going to vote for. What can you say to them to let them know you are the one they should be picking on the ballot?
Well, I would say that I have a track record for the time that I was in the legislature of having the backs of my constituents. If you were a constituent in either my former House district or my Senate district that I represented for a long time, those people knew that they had a champion. They had a voice and they had a tiger in their corner. And that's exactly the way that I would approach being governor. People need to know that their elected folks are standing up for them. And I think this corrosive environment that has existed recently is disabusing people of the notion that government can be a powerful force for good and can work for them and advance their situation. So I would fall back on a track record of having stood with my constituents through thick and thin. I mean, some people have accused me of being a bully. Well, you're calling agency heads on the weekend. Well, my view was if I had a constituent in my legislative district on a weekend and they had a problem and I was working and the constituent was working, agency heads ought to damn well be working.
If Betsy Johnson was not in this race, who would she be voting for?
Betsy is in this race and Betsy's voting for Betsy.
For some reason, I knew that was going to be the answer here. Your path to victory, as you see it, what is it?
Well, a lot of people voting for me. That would be the path to victory. A lot of people that are still holding onto their ballots, hearing these last messages as all of us are making our last case to voters, would be, do I like what I hear? Do I like what I see? Is this somebody that I can rely on and count on to be in my corner? And again, as I said to you when we sat down, we're launching another tour tomorrow. We're going to be in 4 major cities around Oregon, meeting with Oregonians where they live and work, and once again making the case that this somewhat anomalous third party is really the best way to govern a state that has had for a long time a maverick spirit. I only need to take you back to the days of McCall, and I know you were a student of government at that time. We were all damn proud to be Oregonians then. This was a cool place, and we were part of it. We've lost that. And I want to get us back to our maverick pride. I want Portland to be a foodie and, comestibles and libation capital of the world again. I want us to say with pride, I'm an Oregonian. And by picking this unconventional path to governance by the people, I was part of having that maverick spirit recaptured.
What are you going to do to stand up to the extremists, both on the left and the right?
Well, at my age, and with a 20-year tail of legislation dragging around behind me, I think people can figure out that I'm not posing as miscongeniality. I'm here to fix stuff. And for the years that I represented Senate District 16, we fixed stuff. Some of the things that I'm the most proud of are a card, for example, that I got from a little girl back in 2008 when the housing crisis first occurred. And she sent me a card at Christmas and she said, "You gave us what we wanted for Christmas. We're still in our house." That's the stuff that I draw on. And so people have said, well, what are the numbers of the big bills that you were on? I don't necessarily have big bill numbers. I've got phone numbers of ordinary Oregonians. When they needed a champion, they called us. And I was there for them. I handled a lot of the constituent calls in my office personally. Those are the things that were the call to public service for me. I came from a family where public service was valued and practiced, and those values of standing up for people who sometimes feel voiceless were values my parents instilled in me, and I think they're values I brought to the job.
Is it possible to lessen the political divide in this state?
Yeah, elect a new governor, a non-affiliated governor who doesn't ride for a brand, who doesn't toady to an agenda or an ideology, but somebody who has the best interests of Oregonians at heart every single day.
As governor, you willing to compromise with people who don't share your political beliefs?
Oh, sure. Sure, I'm trained as a lawyer. The good news for the profession is I never practiced. But you don't get the kinds of wins that I've had in my district, rebuilding 3 schools in Vernonia, lessening flooding, duration and height in Tillamook, building the Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center, causing PCC to build a college campus in Scappoose. You don't get those kind of wins without compromise. And I very strongly believe that you don't have to hit a home run at every bat. Every at-bat. Incremental wins are good enough. And you begin to build those trust relationships back. You get people to feel an ownership in significant wins that helped Oregon. And they want to do it again and again and again. I think Republicans and Democrats want to work together. And I think by having a non-affiliated governor saying, let's all come in the room and you move towards me a little bit, I'll move towards you a little bit, and let's get compromises we can all go home and take credit for.
You travel around the state quite a bit, talking to folks. How would you describe how Oregonians are feeling right now?
They're angry. That was one of the things that gave impetus to me running non-affiliated. People talk about the urban-rural divide. They're more united in their distrust and dislike of government than I think people believe. Now, the farther east you go and the farther south you go, the more disengaged, the more disrespected, the more looked down on people feel. And they're tired of being told by the I-5 corridor, how life is going to be run. They are eager to participate, and I believe by having a non-affiliated governor that they then have that seat at the table.
How do you address that as governor?
Oh, but by not paying any attention to party affiliation. I had a guy ask me in a town hall, are you going to appoint Republicans to the ODF&W, Oregon Fish and Wildlife Board? I said, I don't care what your party affiliation is. Are you willing to read the board book, do the time in the seat, study, go home, get opinions, bring them back, use the board table as a place for principled debate? That's the kind of common sense Oregonian I want. I don't care what your zip code is. I don't care what your party affiliation is. I want you to be a God-fearing, right-thinking Oregonian who'll do the work and be proud of it.
A lot of people were talking about your fundraising abilities. You've been able to raise a lot of money. Some of that from Phil Knight in the beginning. He then switched over, gave some money to Christine Drazan. How did you feel about that at the time?
Well, somebody said to me, well, he's got a new horse in the race. No, he doesn't. He has 2 horses in the race.
I want to talk about your ride-along with the Portland Police Bureau, which you recently did. Tell me about that and how that affected you.
Oh, it affected me very deeply, as a matter of fact. I'd gone on a ride-along a million years ago that was 11-plus hours long, guns drawn, 110 miles an hour up Rainier Hill. This was a lot different. We were in downtown Portland out of Central Precinct. But from the moment we got in the car until the moment we got out, we were busy. We had a female officer and a male officer. And we started by going to a homeless camp that was being cleaned up, and there was some trouble there. The Portland response team was on the ground, and a guy was giving them some grief. We moved from there to a tour of Chinatown, where the very quick, observant officers found a drug deal going down, and in the midst of that discovered a guy with a parole violation for some very serious felonies. Off he went to jail. Probably the most moving piece, though, was as we drove around and looked at the camps and looked at the drug dealing and looked at the problems, there was a woman who's been sleeping in a doorway near an office that I've been using in downtown Portland. And we asked the officers, would you do a welfare check on her? I have never seen such compassion. I think the police have gotten a terrible rap. These 2 officers got out of the car. She was sleeping. They knelt down next to her, asked her if she had proper food, if she'd had something to drink water that day, if she had any family when the weather got really bad. They left her cards and phone numbers. And it was incredibly moving. Their empathy, their just human compassion. And I think it's easy sometimes to see people living on the streets as a problem. Suddenly I know this woman's name, and that isn't a problem anymore. Regardless of what happens in the election, I'm going to make getting this woman off the streets and into services a project.
Long campaign, you know that. It's been several months of this, if not longer. Your biggest takeaway from this campaign?
My biggest takeaway is people love this state. I love this state. They see it headed in the wrong direction. 8 counties have already voted to leave. We've got another, I think it's a total of 13 that are talking about Greater Idaho. 18% of Oregonians think we're headed in the right direction. I'd like to know who those 18% are, because I sure haven't met any of them. But I think Oregonians want their state back. They want to be proud. They want government functions that function. I talked to some young entrepreneurs this morning. These are all people that own small businesses downtown, and they've had their windows broken out, their cash registers stolen, their employees threatened. These are young entrepreneurs. And one of them said to me, I want to raise a family. I want to have a house. I want to have opportunity here. And collectively, they expressed a deterioration in their belief in civic institutions. I want to fix that. We've got to bring that back. And these are the young, up-and-coming leaders of this community. One of them, an African-American guy, all the rest of us at the table decided we're running him for something. We just haven't decided what. And when he demurred, we said, we're all going to get together and conspire as to what we're going to run you for, because you're running for something. Anyway, it is, I think, Oregonians' desire to get their state back. And I've said that already in this interview. That was an overwhelming sense of where Oregonians are. I think we can do it. I've complained a lot about things that I have observed that are wrong. I still believe that there's a chance. And I believe that the chance rests with electing an independent governor and putting Oregonians back in charge of their governance and their communities.
How well will you sleep on the night before election, November 7th?
Oh, hell, I haven't slept in a year. Why should it be different the night before the election?
Betsy Johnson, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Appreciate it.